Hello and welcome to another episode of In the Wheels. Today we are joined by Seb Grindley. He's a junior rider from the UK, currently racing for Fensham House. He's been doing great bits already this year. He got 11th at the Paris-Roubaix Juniors, which is highly prestigious, and even better than that, he won the Nokere-Koerse with a late attack. You get to hear more about that in the interview, so without further ado, sit back and enjoy. Thanks so much for joining me today. I guess let's start with the weekend. Paris-Roubaix Juniors. Um, what was that experience like? So you got 11th on the day. Like that's an amazing result. Like 11th in any race, I'll be honest, is pretty damn good. But especially somewhere as iconic as that Roubaix velodrome.
Yeah, it was great. Probably my big goal of the season, or one of them at least. It's pretty iconic, to say the least. Riding it on the same day as the elites. I think for the juniors, the races that are on the same day as the elites, they're always great just because the atmosphere. You know, some guys make a day of it. They go there, stand in a field and like at the side of Carrefour and wait for like 5 hours for all these riders to come through. So not only just like the parkour, you know, the cobble sectors and stuff, but the actual atmosphere of the race as well was great. And you know, to have like all right legs and come in on decent form and be able to perform pretty decent was, yeah, it was quite a nice day. Did hope for more, but you know, there's I'm still happy with the company I was in and the level of the field. It's a pretty nice result.
Yeah, and obviously, well, how many sectors do the juniors have to do? Because I assume like you'd have to do the same sectors because they're numbered, and therefore, like you can't do like 10 and then skip 9, 8, and 7 and go on to 6. People will get confused. So, like, which sectors do you have to do?
I think for the junior men, we do this pretty much the same course as the elite women. So the final 17 or 18 sectors, I think. So it's still 30k cobbles, but if you think about that in comparison to the elite men's, it's like they're doing like 260k's, like 60k's of cobbles as well. So
yeah,
there's levels to it, but it's still blooming hard doing what we did the other day.
yeah. Like, how are the hands feeling? Because like I've seen pictures of like Pidcock's hands were just a mess. Like he went raw and just no gloved it as well. Like
that's mental.
insane.
Like, a couple of my teammates on the GB team were, well, they did go no gloves, and it's just like it's crazy. I went pretty protected. I got some mountain bike gloves that I'd used during the cyclocross season, so
Nice.
like thick padding, you know. So I literally, like, right now my hands are perfect. Like didn't have wrong. I wore them the whole way. I took them off with 2 sectors to go. The last 2 sectors aren't anything major, so I was like, you know, I don't want to be sprinting in the velodrome with some thick mountain bike gloves on, but they did the job. And if I did that race again, I'd probably go for the same strategy. They were great.
Yeah, I mean, mind you, we say no gloves. It doesn't sound like the way to do it. Like Mathieu van der Poel, like his hands were immaculate. I'm like,
Yeah.
what? Firstly, what is his skincare routine? But also, like, how did he do that much racing, and his hands are like nothing?
Yeah, ridiculous. I mean, the speed he goes over him though, he's probably just like gliding on him, innit? He just doesn't even feel it.
Is that actually, like, loads of people seem to say it, like, does it make a difference to go quicker over them?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Like, I think at the higher speeds, I mean, like we were doing our race, I think we averaged like 41, 42k an hour. They averaged 48. So like the difference isn't as high between maybe us and them. But if you do 40 or like 30k an hour, the difference between that, if you're doing 30k an hour on the cobbles, you're feeling like every single one really. So yeah, it makes a big difference going a bit faster. It just sort of smooths the vibrations out as much. You're not bouncing up and down, and plus they're over quicker as well, aren't they, if you go faster? So there's less damage.
Yeah, it's kind of, what was that thing that I think it's Chris Boardman said it, which you'll be too young to even have seen his career, let alone. But like he said, like you don't get any better. Well, you get better, but you still suffer. You just suffer for less time. It's like, yeah, makes a lot of sense actually. And I don't want to bring it up, but in a way I kind of do. Like there's a guy who seems to be always around, like, basically, Urban Sparfel, I hope I've said his name right, he rolled you for 10th, and
Yeah.
he rolled Cam Mason for the relay gold. I'm like, third time lucky? Like, do you want to get him in the sprint again so then you can right that wrong? Or, yeah, how
Yeah.
do you feel about that? How did the
Uh,
sprint go down as well? Because, like, there's not a lot of footage around for junior races.
I mean, yeah, especially you do get the odd like footage of a race here and there, but there's limited motorbikes and stuff, so it's either you get a shot of the lead break or you don't get any footage at all. Do you know what I mean? So I think
Yeah.
there was a break that went literally after the first sector, and I've not watched the live stream back yet. Something I'm going to do soon just to have a look, see if there is any interesting footage. But from what I know from races I've raced in the past with live coverage, it's literally just a break. The front of the race gets filmed and nothing else. So from my perspective in the sprint, yeah, it was just a 2-up. The race completely splintered. The sector before Mons and Pavel, so pretty much the waypoint, and then it just kept splintering, and then it was pretty much just groups of 1 and 2s like rolling into the velodrome, to be honest, at the end. And yeah, me and Orban, I knew he had a strong kit because I mean his ride at the team worlds was pretty crazy, and I've raced against him in cyclocross as well, last winter, so I'm familiar with his style of riding, whatever. But yeah, I let it out. I've done a little bit of time on a track, so with my limited knowledge, just did a little like stayed in the saddle, just squeeze and squeeze and squeeze, pressed on, and then we got into the final straight. I just got out of the saddle, sort of like gave what I had, but yeah, he's got a really good punch on him for such a like small light rider.
Yeah, and does it feel like, I guess is it weird to ride on a track with a geared bike? Because like normally
Yeah,
it's like, you go down to Manchester or Herne Hill or Newport or wherever, like it's always single gear fixed. And this you could freewheel on a track. Like sounds insane.
yeah. Doing the we were going quite slow, obviously, like a bit of cat and mouse when we first entered the velodrome, and you ran around the top of the track and you're freewheeling, and it's just like it feels illegal, it feels just wrong, and it's cool though, at the end of a race like that, and then going to the velodrome, obviously the atmosphere is like 10 times better there than it is at the best points out on any distances. So yeah, it's like a really nice feeling, but you come in and it's just like you're very in the zone. That's how I felt as well. So like I can reflect on it now, but in the time I was just like, gotta beat this fella in the sprint,
Yeah, definitely. Do you find it easy to get like in that racing mindset? I just say that because like I used to ride a little, I was never that good, but like in training, just doing like I could ride the same time trial course that I'd do a 10 on. I'd be rubbish. But if you
Yeah,
put like a bloke with a clipboard, I mean, the stopwatch doesn't even have to work, to be honest. I don't see it. But, you know what I mean? Just hear someone count down, someone clicks, and you're like,
yeah,
oh, it's time to race. But again, like, there's been races I've done where I don't feel in it. And then
yeah,
there's like once or twice in my life I felt like, oh, it's on, and your whole like, for me, like, yeah, you just get this sort of rush of heat across all your body. But I don't know what it's like for you, and like, is it easy to get into that sort of super focused mindset?
yeah, definitely. I think when it comes to racing in general, just like even the thought of racing, I can like sort of get into the zone, and like that's sort of why I ride, to be honest. I train to like aid my racing and stuff like that. It's not like I don't enjoy training or riding. I love riding, but I just love the competition of it and stuff. So yeah, I find it quite easy to get in the zone. Like in the morning of Roubaix, we just me and my roommate Sam Fisher, and a rider on the GB team, just there, like legs up in bed, just like listening to tunes on the speaker, and yeah, you just sort of like get in that zone, like imagine the race, and it definitely helps. Like you said, like we do the recon the day before, and you're not really feeling great or whatever, and then you get to the race, you're in the zone, and everything's like you can almost like can't you feel your legs, at least for the first few seconds.
Yeah, like what's actually on the jukebox on a Roubaix morning? Like, what do you use to get yourself going?
I have got a specific warm-up playlist, but I got to work up to that. That's pretty intense, but more probably consists of a bit of like, just house music, techno, that sort of. Don't like too many lyrics. In like when it gets like close to the not doesn't really have anything to do with it, but just the type of music. It's quite quite drum and bassy like house music. So
Oh, nice. Yeah, I mean, sometimes I just put things on like that just at work, just if I've got something that I don't want to think about, like
yeah,
boring stuff, basically. Put a bit of like Ministry of Sound. Like I've got a super, yeah, from 2016 actually, so it's super old now. It's like 8 years old, but like, yeah, that's perfect background music. I can see how that would really work for you, actually.
yeah, exactly.
And you mentioned a couple of times that doing Roubaix, you were for GB team, but you've done races on the continent for Fensham House. Like, do you race any differently between the two teams?
Most of the time when I race for GB, it's probably a few more team orders. It's with Fensham, it's very much like Giles helps you get out there, gives you the opportunity to go and race abroad, but like you're there, you sort of fight for your own opportunities, and at the end of the day, he just wants you to progress to under 23, get yourself a good team there. So he doesn't. Giles isn't a fan of the idea of other riders sacrificing themselves for one another. Everyone gets equal opportunities to sort of like go there and get the best results, so they can they've all like the opportunity to get a good under 23 team.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and certainly as an outsider, I would imagine that the GB team would be a bit more like, yeah,
Yeah,
okay, like
that's more that's how I describe it. Yeah, they just they want the wins, they want the results, whereas Fensham is like about the progression almost up to under 23.
yeah. And how, like, do you ever feel pressure for that next year? Like, are you thinking, oh, second year junior, I've got to make sure I really kick on here, or like, are you quite relaxed because you took the win at Nokere-Koerse?
Yeah.
I'd imagine that puts you in a good position for prospective under 23 and even elite teams. But yeah, like how's your mind at?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's always on the back of your mind, especially since Nokere, and I had a decent ride at Worlds last year. So I mean, with a combination of a few decent results, it just sort of like it does take the pressure off a little bit. Like starting the season quite strong, not something I have to think about as much now, hopefully. But yeah, it's just like before that point, it just seems like riders are getting like snapped up like younger and younger. Like some of the guys against are already going world tour, and there's like dev teams full, and yeah, it's like it's quite hectic looking for under 23 teams, but you just get like one good result, and it sort of opens a few doors, which is really nice and takes pressure off.
Yeah, I mentioned Nokere-Koerse a minute ago. Like, how was that for you? Because from what I understand, you attacked. I couldn't tell you when you attacked, so I don't want to fib and be like, oh yeah, you were in an early break when maybe you weren't. I honestly don't know, but I'm led to believe you attacked, and like there was a sprint behind you that they got the same time as you, but you'd already won by then. Like it was never in doubt at that stage.
Yeah, I'd sort of been attacking all race at Nokere, but just up by the front. Pretty good day, I must say. And then I got through to final like 5k, and nothing was really going. We'd gone through all the cobble sectors, and it was more or less just like going through little country lanes until we got to the Nokere-Berg, which was sort of like the final drag to the finish. And an FDJ rider just sort of clipped off the front and just stayed about 100, 200 meters off the front, and everyone was really cagey, and he was just in sight the whole time. And it got to about 2k to go, and no one was taking up any of the chasing. Like teamwork really isn't a thing in junior racing. So everyone,
Yeah.
and he's just there off the front, and I waited for a little opening. I was positioned probably like, I don't know, 10 wheels back or something, and I just sort of hit him with quite a bit of speed into a bit of a chicane, and sort of risked it a bit there, like just don't touch the brake through these corners, and then put my head down with 2k to go. And I think I caught the FDJ ride about 400 meters to go, and pretty much sat on him for maybe like a couple seconds, had a bit of a breather, and then hit him as soon as we hit the Nokere-Koerse. And I think he got swallowed up by the group, and I just held on like by a handful of seconds, if that. So yeah, it was a pretty good way to start the season.
Yeah, definitely. I think it is always great seeing a fellow Brit get a win, and obviously, at a place that is quite well known in Nokere, and obviously you did well at at Paris-Roubaix. You've also got a bit of a pedigree in cyclocross. It seems like when the road, if you can call it road, you know what I mean, when the parkour's a little uneven under the wheels, you seem to excel. Like, do you feel more of a road rider or a cyclocross rider? Like, where's your focus, or are you still trying to do both?
I do love both disciplines, but I would probably call myself a road rider more than a cyclocross rider. Cyclocross is definitely just more for fun in the winter. I did take it a lot more seriously this winter, but I think the results I wanted, which made me focus on the road, cut the cross season short, focus on the road, and the preparation phase for both the seasons, that's what really gets me like excited for the disciplines, like getting ready for the road season, getting ready for the cyclocross season. So it sort of depends what time of the year you catch me in, but as of right now, I'd say definitely I call myself a road rider.
Yeah, I just love the fact that you're like, oh yeah, I just do it for fun, just first as your first year junior and coming second at British Nationals rather. Or should I say, to be specific, like, yeah, winning Nationals your first year and then second last year, like, for something you do for fun, that's not bad. I'd take that every day.
Yeah, that's a nice bit. Wearing that kit all of last season was really nice.
Yeah, did you actually feel like pressure to show yourself on, because you've got the national band, you're like, oh, better actually, it puts a target on your back and everyone wants to beat you, and you've got to prove yourself every week.
Yeah, definitely, especially the first few races. I mean, to be honest, like team tactics and stuff like that don't really come into place in the cyclocross races, so it's not like they're like sort of pinging attacks and looking at you to chase. But I felt like the internal pressure sort of just from myself, especially the first few races, where it's done that every season I've done a cyclocross. It does take me a few races to get into it from the road season, but and I knew that, but the fact that I just wasn't getting the results in the national champs band, especially the first few races, was quite hard to take. So I just sort of had to get my head around, like, it's just a jersey at the end of the day. It's a nice one, and I was really happy. But I mean, it shouldn't be adding more pressure than I already put on myself for racing. So it just took me a while to get around that. But once I did, it was it was really nice having it.
Yeah, I guess like psychologically, like if you're wearing those bands, you're like, oh, I've got to perform. But if you're not, like, no one's, or it's less noticeable if you don't get a result, because they're like, oh, the not British champion got third. Like, okay, like that's not notable. Whereas the British champ got third and got beaten by two other Brits. Like, people are gonna spot that, and it's kind of, yeah, it must make it hard. But like you mentioned that, Roubaix was one of your goals, and you're really having a road focus. Like, what are the rest of your goals for the year? Like, what's the targets? What races are you really gunning for?
Yeah, so definitely Roubaix, and then sorry, I'd say national road TT champs is always a goal, especially this year. Second year, top of the age group. It was close last year as well with the road race. So I mean, I'm quite eager to get back there and sort of get the title. That'd be nice. That's probably the next big goal for me. Before Worlds, really. We're gonna focus on both the road race and the TT. We're not really gonna like go for one event specifically, but I mean, depending on how I'm going in the time trial, and maybe I focus on one thing or the other. But right now, it's sort of like, just go for both and see what happens. But later on the season, if I'm going really well in time trial or not, then the road race or the TT, maybe focus on individually.
Yeah, how do you find time trialing? Because it's like it can be some of the best feelings, and also like I feel some of the worst feelings. Like if you're on a bad day, you are there by yourself, and that's it. Like in a road race, you can hide in the wheels, and you can go, well, yeah, maybe I'm not on super legs, but I can hide, and if I ping off the front and people don't bother chasing me, I might get a result here. Like they call time trialing the race of truth. There's a lot of reason for that. I mean, I would argue tech, pollutes it slightly, but equally it is quite an honest race in many ways.
Yeah, I don't mind time trialing. I think, to be honest, it's strange, but cyclocrossers tend to be like fairly okay at time trialing. It's probably because we do pretty much time trial around that muddy field all winter. So not too bad at it, but it's definitely something I need to work on. Just to have more time on the TT bike is just like essential if you want to improve your skills on it, which I'm trying to do at the moment. And yeah, that's probably it. Just determines like you say, it's such an honest race. Like if you're going well in the time trial, you're going to go well in the road race. You got the legs. Like it's something I'm trying to focus on, especially before like nationals and worlds this year.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess kind of related to your goals and going back a step up in many ways, like how do you know that you've been successful? Like at the end of this year, what would you go, oh yeah, that was a good year? Or yeah, just like how are you measuring success for you?
Yeah, I think I obviously outlined goals at the start of the season. So if I'm honest, like I've pretty much ticked off most of my goals within the first like 3 races. So
nice. I mean, job done. You can end the season here then.
Like UCI win was like definitely up there. Last year I was close, but never really had like top spot on a UCI podium anyway. So that was one of the other goals. And to be honest, my like gold races, like my main races, like Paris-Roubaix or Worlds or Nationals. Nationals is a bit different. I do set myself with like a target result there, but for Roubaix, it was sort of just like have a good race. To be honest, like I didn't set myself like, oh, I want to win Roubaix or podium at Roubaix. I just have a good race there. That's a race I want to do well at, and wherever I get, and if I'm going well and have no issues, then I'll be pretty content with it. So
yeah, and is Roubaix like a future goal as when you get to Espoir level, which is under 23? Like some people use the French term, and likewise when you get to elite, like does that suit your style of riding, or do you suit maybe the Ardennes type races or even a Grand Tour? Like how do you fit in, or how do you see yourself fitting in rather?
I think the type of rider I am, I do actually prefer a little bit more climbing, like not like mountain cols or anything like that, but maybe like like Liège, like when we did Liège last year, that's I did pretty well there, and the course suited me quite well. Just like fairly short but hilly there, that most of the proper true like sprinty, like much heavier guys can't really make it around. It's a tough parkour, but there's always something about Roubaix. Like I think it's not like I can't like go well on that sort of parkour. I do like the cobblestone and stuff, but ideally a few more climbs. But I went and saw it with my dad in 2022, I think, when Dylan van Baarle won, and we stayed there the whole day, like I said, in the field at the end of car 4, waiting for the riders to come through. And when they did, they just like sort of inspired me, and ever since that day, it's been my favorite race, and that's one of the reasons it was my target race this year as well. So it's something I'd like to go for in the future.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I mean, mentioning cobbles, mentioning climbs. I know there's one race I'm thinking of is clearly the Ronde. Tour of Flanders. I mean, I'm still gutted that they don't use the Mur at Gerardsbergen, because that was like truly an iconic climb. But going up the Quaremont and Paterberg combination looks brutal, and that would seem to suit your description of yourself. But was 2022, was that the year that Lampard got like knocked out by a
Yeah,
spectator and then
yeah, yeah.
was that
Dylan Van
car
Baal.
four or was sorry.
So yeah, just say like Dylan Van Baal solo, him and was it Mohoric chasing, and yeah, taken out by a spectator on, I think it's like the second to last sector. So
Yeah, I was curious whether I think it must have been, yeah, because they had those sort of plastic bollardy things as well.
yeah.
That is it the champion sector, I guess, where they've got all the pictures of the former winners.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they had them up at the weekend actually. You could sort of read them as you're going by if you're not too far in the red.
I was going to say, do
through.
you get chance to look and go, oh, is that what Sean Kelly looks like? Cool.
Yeah. I mean, they're quite spaced out and they are like huge signs. So I did get a chance to have a look at them, but I'm not really looking at it in depth, when you're at the back end of a race like that.
Yeah, of course. And I can't believe we've made it this far into this interview without me even asking, like, how did you even find cycling? Because it's genuine. It seems like the most basic question, but I feel it's so illuminating about someone that, like, how did they get into the sport? And 'cause for me, it was like just seeing Mark Cavendish get interviewed by Ned Boulting in like 2008 when he was like super annoyed at not winning. That just stuck with me. I was like, oh yeah, this is a great sport. But yeah, what was your route in?
Yeah, I mean, probably like most people, definitely my parents, especially my dad. He used to be a runner back
Okay.
when he was like younger, and yeah, he got injured quite a lot. He was having to do gym to rehab, and he was riding to the gym more. Like he was riding to the gym during his rehab, and he started enjoying that more than doing the gym and the running itself. So that's where his journey in cycling started, and then he started racing. I came along, watched a few, and then just sort of all started from there. It's just like racing and stuff like that. Competing is sort of, I've always liked that. I've played football in the past and done some running, but yeah, it's just like the competition that I love in cycling, really.
Is there elements of other sports that you've brought into, like, I don't know, like, because football was something I tried to do. I was left back, which led to the inevitable jokes about that position as well, about being left back in the changing rooms. They've stuck with me a while actually, because that's like a 20-year-old joke. But yeah, is there anything from other sports that you've brought in, or is it because I think I saw the other day, like, just those who are like truly world class just ended up doing loads of sports and weren't specialized at a young age. They waited until much later to focus in on a single sport.
Yeah. It's quite hard for me to think of something that I've brought across from football because, like, yeah, it's pretty like stark contrast sports, to be honest. But I mean, yeah, like you said, I did play like decent level. We were doing all right, our team, and till it was probably not too long ago when I quit, maybe like 4 years ago or something. So
Wow.
But there's not too much that I could say I brought across from that.
No, and that's fair enough. Like, what was it at that point that you went, okay, I'm just going to be super serious about cycling? Was that what forced you to, or made you quit, or was it, are you still, or are you even like super serious about cycling yet? I mean, I would argue you probably are, as an observer, but might not match with how you see yourself.
Yeah, I just, to be like I said, I just love the competition, and when I started doing better at cycling than I was doing at football, a pretty easy choice was made, and obviously stuck with cycling. And then I only started training properly a few years ago when I joined the GB, like NSR, like National School of Racing, I think it's called. And
yeah,
yeah,
I'd heard of
that's sort of like
RSR, which is like the
it's like the
regionals.
step up from RSR, I think, the regional
Yeah.
school racing to the national school racing, in like second year A, and they sort of give you a coach there. And I started training like, it's not like properly training. There's like some Russian steps on the rollers or something like that here and there. It's nothing crazy, but that's when I first got a bit of structure training, and then sort of from there when I left the program and stuff. Yeah, I've been with like Dean Downing. Yeah, he's been good and like taking cycling, I'd say, fairly seriously at the moment, but I mean, not as seriously as it will do. It's obviously going to progress. Like, diet and stuff like that isn't anything crazy. Just like eat what I want almost.
Oh, I hate
Sort of
young
stuff.
people for that.
But yeah, exactly. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of steps I can take to make my cycling more serious. But it's probably like my sole focus at the moment. Like aside college, I would say.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it's always hard to balance the two. I would imagine. So yeah, Deep Downing is clearly a person of quite a lot of renown, and certainly his coaching. I actually spoke with Joe Tindley, who's also one of his coaches, but was one of his, I guess, students as well. I don't even know what to like. Yeah, he coached her, and she's also a coach.
Yeah.
Is essentially what I'm trying to say. But yeah, like he's a great name to be involved with, because I don't think there's much within the world that he's not seen, certainly at domestic and continental level.
Yeah, definitely.
I would say one of the best pros to not like ever get like a world tour level contract, if that makes sense.
Yeah. National level sort of pro, never really stepped out of the domestic like racing scene, did he? But
Nah. I mean, I'm sure he's got a ton of stories to tell, but you've probably heard about, like, I heard him on the podcast once talk about, like, he tried to buy someone off at a Koerse, and the guy kept turning. He's like, "Oh, I'll pay you 500," and he's like, "No," and then so just Dean was so angry that he kept turning him down that he beat him in the sprint anyway, and saved himself a fortune apparently. Yeah.
he's not told me that one yet, but yeah, he has got quite a few stories. He's like not just like a good coach, but he's also just like a nice guy to talk to.
Yeah, I think I would argue that makes a huge difference. But yeah, we talked about your goals. We talked about how you got in, like all that good stuff. How can people keep like following your progress, I guess, through the rest of the year? Like, where can people find you on socials, essentially?
Yeah, probably Instagram is I have Twitter as well, but it's really rarely used. So I'd probably say Instagram. Yeah, pretty simple. Just literally just Seb Grindley on Instagram, and you'll find it.
Yeah, well, as I'm speaking right now, there'll be a screenshot of your profile, so people can find it fairly easily. It'll be in the show notes as well, just to make it extra easy for people. And all that's left for me to say is thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much for having us. Appreciate it.
There you go. What a lovely episode that was. Hope you enjoyed it and enjoyed listening. Thank you, as always, for spending your time with us. And yeah, we look forward to seeing what Seb gets up to in the rest of this year and seeing where he moves on to next.